So today marks 3 years since 3 firefighters lost their lives during a fire at the Bank of Lisbon building in Johannesburg. A union report has revealed the firefighters were ill-equipped and battling a fire at a building that wasn't compliant with safety regulations. Unions say improvements to working conditions have been happening at a snail's pace. eNCA's Lindokuhle Xulu is following that story and joins me now for a conversation. And I suppose, Lindo, we have to go to a large extent with what the unions are telling us at this point, simply because the official reports from the various investigating bodies, the various government agencies, have simply not been made public 3 years later. So what are unions saying about this fire at the Bank of Lisbon building?
That's right, Tulas. I think you're right in saying we have to go with what the unions are saying right now, because one of the things that happened was that after that fire, after everything calmed down in Johannesburg and that building, the fire was doused, we did see that, and we heard that several investigations would be launched, but a few of them have been released. In fact, I can tell you that the only report that's been released is from the city of Johannesburg. But the city of Johannesburg, when we spoke to them just yesterday, they also admitted that the important reports that are comprehensive of what would have happened at the Bank of Lisbon building would include the investigations from South African Police Service, but also investigations from Gauteng's infrastructure department. And those reports are yet to be released, not only to the public, but also to families. But I can tell you that unions themselves are saying that they have done their investigations. They have spoken to some of those that were in that building when that fire had engulfed that Bank of Lisbon building. And one of the things they are saying is that they were simply ill-equipped, and they're saying that they were ill-prepared, that they lost the fight even before they entered that building to try and battle that blaze. One of the things they have cited is that that was a 23-story building, and on the 23rd floor, that was where the fire was. And they're saying some of their fire engines are only equipped to go as far as the 10th or 12th floor. So they're saying that that on its own meant that firefighters had to then go in that building physically, walking up the stairs from one stair to another, from one floor to another, saying that that on its own was already a hazard. But also the issue of communication devices, they're saying that they did not have what they call two-way radios, which would enable them to communicate with those that are on the ground for support or for just information passed around in terms of whether maybe the fire would have started on the floor below, so that they would then have to take safety precautions. And Tulas, it says that this left them exposed. One of the things that one of the firefighters apparently told the unions was that they had to then resort to using their phones, and that would require them to remove the safety gloves, to call the floor to for a certain assistance. But they said that some of these firefighters that were in that building had burns on their hands because of this action to try and call for backup. So at the end of the day, the unions are saying that because of being ill-equipped and also being faced with a building that is burning, but at the same time non-compliance with safety standards, that is what they believe had caused the loss of life in the Bank of Lisbon building.
Yeah, I know, Lindo, as you speak, I'm also just thinking about the fact that I covered that fire and I was on the ground for all those days that the fire was burning. And what you are saying, tallies up with what I could observe with my untrained eye. That whole idea that some of the fire engines simply had the hydraulics, the ladders could not reach the upper floors of the building, with the result that they were indeed having to get inside and basically make their way through the staircases, which had proven fatal previously in a separate fire within Johannesburg. So that really tallies up with what I know from my own coverage. But you've also been talking, Lindo, about the impact on the fire, on the lives and livelihoods of the people that were involved, the firefighters that died. Are they any clearer, the families that is, as to what happened to their loved ones?
Well, they are not any clearer to us, but just before I go into what the families have told us, I can also tell you that I was with you, in fact, in one of the days, and you'd remember that fire engines from OR Tambo International Airport, from Ekurhuleni, were actually called to the scene to try and assist because of how insufficient because of how much these trucks were struggling, the fire engines from Johannesburg. So certainly those were concerning scenes, seeing just how low the fire engines would reach as opposed to what is required in terms of reaching that 23rd building. But yes, we've spoken to the families, we've spoken to one of the widows, that is the widow of Katuchero Muedi, that's from Murani Muedi, who basically told us yesterday that they have no clarity as to what had happened. She says at the time when she heard about the news, they just had their second daughter. She says that she was only 3 weeks old. That was when she had the devastating news of her husband that had died in the line of duty. And she says that the daughter is now 3-year-old. There is another one that is a firstborn who is 5-year-old, and she's dealing with questions from them of asking what happened to their father. And she says at the moment, because there hasn't been an official report, what she can only tell them is that their father died at work. But she says that she's hoping that soon, or rather sooner than later, especially when her daughters grow up, she'll be able to give them a sense of what exactly happened to their father. But also the families have told us that in terms of considering legal action, they want to get a sense of what happened. They want the official reports first, and then they'll take that decision. But certainly livelihoods here, lives disrupted with the loss of many of their breadwinners. But fortunately, there has been some claims, as we understand, that had been cleared in terms of the risk insurances that firefighters would have. The families are telling us that some of those payments have been come in handy in terms of losing these breadwinners. But certainly more than just a financial issue, Tulas, as I mentioned, with some families battling with explaining what is it exactly that happened to their loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly appalling, Lindo. Just as a parting shot from me, what has happened in the last 3 years, because, you know, we are no clearer as citizens and residents of Johannesburg as to how a fire could rage in a departmental building. This was the Department of Health. That building housed the Department of Health, and 3 years later we have no answers. All we have is really waffling on the part of politicians, one undertaking after another, never met. The DA's Jack Bloom has been asking questions in the legislature with undertakings from the Premier that the report will be coming soon. 3 years later, here we are. The family doesn't know. The colleagues of the firefighters don't know what happened. I don't know. You don't know. All we know is that we still don't have enough firefighting capacity in this world-class African city. So there you have it.